Hello, one and all. Welcome to a new grammar lesson. Well, today I'm going to teach you how to use these expressions that you see on the board. Grammar, the use of prefer, would rather, had better, it's time. Well, there are other expressions or other phrases like this, but today we are going to focus on these ones because they are, let's say, the most common ones. All right? Here we go. Let's get started. So, number one, we'll begin with the use of prefer. Well, what you need to know is prefer can be used in different ways to express different situations. Look, for example, let's say we can use prefer in the infinitive form. We can say to prefer to do something, to prefer to do something, to prefer to do something. Okay? Well, now if you want to express your preference, if you are willing to express your preference to something rather than something else, well, prefer, if you choose to use the infinitive form, this is the way you're going to proceed. Follow me very attentively. I prefer to do something rather than do something else. Okay? Rather than do something else. This is meaning the case when, or the case where you prefer to use the infinitive form. Now, let's focus on this. I prefer, or to prefer to do something rather than do something. This is the infinitive form, and if it is used with the infinitive form, it's followed by rather than. And note the use of do. Here, do is not in its infinitive form, but it's in its base form, meaning after rather than, you necessarily have a base form, do. But in the case where you prefer to use prefer with the ing form, because it's possible to prefer doing something, to prefer doing something. This time you say to doing something else. To doing something else. Okay? Now, look, I to prefer doing something to doing something else. There is a difference between the two uses of prefer. Okay? Both are correct. Meaning, you have the choice to use prefer with the infinitive form or the ing form. It's either the infinitive form or the ing form, but both are correct. Note that. And meaning the difference between the base form and the infinitive and the ing form, so is here you have two. Because the ing form will be considered to be a noun here. Understand that? It will be considered to be a noun here. All right? For example, if I say, okay, you can say to prefer something, to prefer something to something else. This time, we're going to use nouns directly. Something to something else. Okay? Now, in this use, there is no verb, no infinitive form, no ing form either. But we have nouns directly, meaning we are, in terms of preference, we are comparing two things. For example, you can say, I prefer tea to coffee. Okay? I prefer football. I prefer soccer to basketball. You express your preference between two things. Understand that? Now, if it's about the ing form, you are expressing your activity, meaning doing something, to doing something else. Understand that? I prefer working to staying at home. I prefer walking to sitting down. Understand that? I prefer to learn my lessons rather than watch TV. Look, understand that? Don't worry, we're going to have examples, okay, beneath this table. Now let's compare the structures we have just explained here. Study the difference in structure. I prefer doing something to doing something else. This is the ing form, okay? And then you will have two for the comparison, okay? And then you're gonna have another ing form. Sorry, you're going to have another ing form. Now, if you prefer to use the infinitive form to do, all right? Now, the noun is here, but you will be having rather than and then the base form. Okay? Be careful. You won't be having the infinitive form like here. No. Because after rather than, you will necessarily have the base form of the verb. Okay? Don't worry, we're going to have examples. All right? And note that the uses with nouns is the same as the use with ing forms. Let's have examples quickly. Let's say, now, with the infinitive form first, you can say, I prefer to leave. Infinitive form. Infinitive. This is the infinitive form. The verb to leave. I prefer to leave rather than this time you'll have stay, but not to stay. Be careful. Some students seldom make this mistake. Okay? Don't make the mistake to use the infinitive form here. No. We won't be having the infinitive form here. We'll have the base form here. Understand that? All right. So rather than stay here. Okay? Now in French, we would say je préfère partir plutôt que de rester ici. Understand that? Je préfère partir plutôt que de rester ici. But in English, after rather than, you don't have the infinitive form but the base form. I think this is clear. All right. Now, let's try with the ing form. We will take the same sentence. All right. You can say, I prefer leaving. I prefer leaving. And this time, will we still have rather than? No. We will skip rather than. Rather than will be substituted by to. I prefer leaving to staying here. And in French, of course, it is going to mean the same thing. All right? Now, we will be having the same, even if we want to express preference between two things, okay? For example, if we say, I prefer coffee to tea. Look, the ing form, okay? The ing form has the same use as with nouns. The use with ing forms, okay? ing form or noun. ing form or noun, to. Understand that? So, prefer plus ing form plus to plus ing form. Prefer plus noun plus to plus noun. It's as simple as that. This is the use of prefer. The different use of prefer. Now, next. What do we have next? Would rather. Now, after dealing with prefer, so we will have would rather. The use of would rather. Now, look. If you say, now, we're going to study or to, let's say, try to explain the structure of would rather. Would rather is always followed. Now, for this use, you say we have would rather plus base form. Okay? Would rather plus base form. Now, in this case, would rather is directly followed by the verb. Because in another use, would rather can be followed by another subject. Understand that? Meaning a personal pronoun or a proper noun. All right? Now, example. Now, if I say, I would rather go. I would rather go. Okay? Je préférerais partir. Je préférerais partir. Okay? Be careful. Don't think that this would mean in French, j'aurais préféré partir. No. But in the conditional, je préférerais partir. Okay? You are expressing something you would like to do in a particular situation, in special situations. All right? I would rather go than stay. All right? Would rather go than stay. Understand that? Look, after would rather, you will be having than. Now, if would rather plus verb is followed by another verb, they will be separated by than. Is that clear? I would rather go than stay. Or, I would rather, let's say I would rather going to staying. This, but it's very, very rare, very seldom. But this form is most common. So I suggest you to use this one. Understand that? Another example. For example, now it can be used under the form of a question. Okay? If I want to propose you something, would you rather have coffee or tea? Now, if you invite something, let's say to come and pay you a visit, or if something pays you, if someone pays you a visit, okay, you can propose him or you can offer him something by asking him, of course, what he prefers, what he or she prefers. Okay? Would you rather have coffee or tea? Voudriez-vous avoir du café ou du thé? Understand that? Right. In another use of would rather, you can have this. Would rather plus subject plus. Well, my question is, are we going to still have the base form after the subject here? No. We're going to have a tense, which is the simple past, of course. So, everything will change in this use. Okay, would rather. Example. I would rather you didn't do that. Understand that? You are telling someone that you don't want him to do something. Okay? Let's say in a more polite way or in a more formal way, you can say, I would rather you didn't do that. Or, yes, let's say your father would rather you went to France. Okay? All right, your choice, let us suppose that your choice is to go to the US. All right? And your mother tells you, your father would rather you went to France. Okay? Right. All right. So your choice, your initial choice was the US, but your father doesn't want you to go to the US. He wants you to go to France. All right? Your mother tells you, okay, your father would rather you went to France. So what you need to note here is if would rather is followed by another subject, the verb will be in the simple past. As simple as that. Okay? Now, after that, let's tackle the expression had better. Had better, this is the structure of had better. Had better, had better is always followed by the base form. Had better plus base. Had better plus base form. Okay? No changes. Had better is always followed by the base form. It's always used with the base form of the verb. Understand? And there is something else you need to note or to bear in mind. It's the use of had better. Had better is always used like this, meaning in the short form. The subject is here, and then, sorry. So, example, you will say, instead of writing the complete form of had better is always used like this. You'd better leave. Now, you better leave now. Meaning, this, what does it mean? It means that you are advising someone to leave right now. If we wanted to replace this use by a modal verb, okay, it would be should. We will say, you should leave now. This is a suggestion. This is a piece of advice. So, you can also have I'd, like this. Not I had, but I'd better learn my lessons. Okay? Let us suppose that you were planned to have a test next week, for example. You say, I had better learn my lessons. Je ferais mieux d'apprendre mes leçons. Tu ferais mieux de partir tout de suite. So this is an advice. C'est un conseil. Understand that? Okay? Then say, she'd better not, let's say, she'd better not go out at 9 p.m. Okay? She'd better not go out. She'd better not go out. Now, even if you want to use the negative form, so after had better, you will write not before the base form. Okay? Not will not be after the base form, but before the base form. You write not before the base form. She'd better not go out at 9 p.m. Okay? The use of had better is as simple as that. What you just need to, let's say, to do is to remember the structures. To remember the structures and not forget them. Understand that? Okay. Now let's tackle the next part, meaning the last one. But the last, but not the least. Okay? It's time. It's time also has different uses. That's why it is going to be the last in our lesson, but not the least, right? Well, its time also has different uses, meaning its own uses, and they are different. Look, its time can be used with the infinitive. The infinitive form, okay? The infinitive form. For example, it's time to go now. Here, its time is followed by the verb. Okay? And if its time is followed by the verb, we will necessarily use the infinitive form. It's time to go now. It's time, let's say, it's time to do something. It's time to do something. Il est temps de faire quelque chose. Okay? Alright? So, it's time to do something. Il est temps de faire quelque chose. Understand that? It's time to react. Okay? And so on and so forth. This is very simple. Alright? it's time with the infinitive form. But if its time is followed, it's time, okay? Now remember that it's time, it's high time, it's about time, it's due time, okay? All these expressions, all these phrases, all these expressions are the same. They are the same, they mean the same thing, and they have the same uses, all right? It's time plus subject plus simple past. Understand? So, if its time is followed by a subject, we are going to use the simple past. For example, it's time the president took drastic measures, okay, etc. It's time the president took drastic measures to eradicate let's say the coronavirus, for example. Understand that? You know that these days the coronavirus is raging all around the world, all right? So we can say it's time the president took drastic measures to eradicate the pandemic. Understand that? All right. Or another example, we can still have it's high time. I told you that they are the same expressions. It's high time you knew what happened to your father. Okay? In French, well, how are we going to translate this into French? We will say, il est grand temps que tu saches ce qui est arrivé à ton père. Understand that? It's high time you knew what happened to your father. It's high time plus subject plus simple past in the rest of the sentence. This is the use of it's high time. One last example, one final example. You can say it's time we went home now. Let us suppose that you stayed abroad very long enough. Understand that? And then you decide that it's time for you to go home now. You can say, it's time we went home now. Simple past. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what our grammar concerning these expressions is all about. I thank you very much and hope to see you soon.